In this edition of Impact, we meet a woman who preserves tradition and a part of history.
You probably just thought it was something that you did. Now I kind of look back and understand it was part of our survival techniques.
Then, we meet a young woman who's faced with obstacles in the path to following her passion.
It's a chance for me to really say, I'm sticking it out, come hell or high water. I am sticking with God.
But first, we'll enter the world of a spiritual oasis in the heart of Los Angeles.
We cannot really focus our attention on what other people think all the time because we understand what we are doing, we have faith in what we're doing is right.
Welcome to Impact. I'm Jennifer Adu. In our first story, we find a different part of Los Angeles. It takes up a city block and is a place you might expect to find in a rural community. The place, a spiritual commune. Take a look.
My nature is kind of being an extremist. I was drinking, smoking, doing drugs. I came from a wealthy family, so I had everything I needed, and I just enjoyed life. Thought I was happy, but not. After my mom died, I really had to think, do I really want to live this life that I'm leading right now? I want a future, but is this going to be my future?
10 years ago, Radha Kripamai left her privileged life in South Africa to become a devotee of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, otherwise known as ISKCON.
To renounce everything like this, just to, especially in this age, this time, living in LA, to just stop everything. Very, very difficult. I mean, like 99.9% of the people will think that you're crazy.
ISKCON is not well known, but Radha says choosing this lifestyle was simple.
This is the best thing for me and makes me really happy, and I never turn back. And nothing in the material world attracts me, nothing. I want to really devote my life to something that's pure. Every single aspect of our lives is Krishna consciousness. The way we walk, the way we talk, the way we sleep. I do want to live here forever.
Radha lives on Watseka Avenue in Los Angeles. The street is home to New Dwarka, a community dedicated to Krishna consciousness.
It seems like a great irony. Here these people are, they're trying to live a spiritual lifestyle in the middle of the most materialistic city in the world.
Omkar is also a devotee who lives in the commune.
Because most people, when they think of some spiritual group of people, they think some very serene, peaceful setting. That's the stereotype, but at the same time, it's so inaccessible. Now we're right in the heart, in the core of all this materialism. And so it provides a very stark contrast.
We do have quite a large community here, right in the compound. The compound itself has about 180 devotees. We're the largest city temple, probably in the Western world, including Europe.
The Hare Krishna movement is now international, but began in the United States in the late 60s. New Dwarka was established shortly thereafter. The current president, Savas, has overseen the commune since 1986.
We own apartment buildings, so in those apartment buildings altogether there's 82 units, plus 2 houses, and the temple.
Devotees must report to the temple at 4:30 a.m. for morning services, where they chant, dance, and pray to Lord Krishna.
When we speak of Krishna, we are speaking of the absolute truth. There is only one God, and we call God by the name of Krishna.
ISKCON is derived from basic Hindu principles, one of them being the association of other devotees. Members say keeping company with like-minded people is central to their spirituality.
When we pray that, Lord Krishna, please allow me to serve you. So our whole congregation, our whole community here is focused on doing that service to Lord Krishna.
The devotees maintain the temple, as well as run the commune's gift store and restaurant.
And whatever you've seen in this community, it's all done by us, by devotees. We don't get outside help. We require that a devotee does put in a certain amount of hours in a given day or a given week, and it has to be very essential services that are necessary for this community to go on to function. In exchange for that, the temple is going to take care of you, giving you a space, either an apartment or a room, and supply you the necessities of life, although they may be simple, but they are there.
Savas assigns each devotee tasks according to their nature.
I like talking to people, so I'm in the gift store. To have a gift store in LA is very important because people wouldn't be attracted to our movement otherwise. So we try to attract people using everything in the material world. Most of the people that come to the gift store would never look at a devotee.
The gift store doesn't carry anything that contains animal products or synthetic materials.
We believe that everything should be natural. Like now we see there's so much of unnatural thing. That's why people are getting diseased, they're getting sick. So by using natural products, things that's coming from Mother Earth, we have everything here.
Just below the gift store is a Commune's restaurant called Govinda's.
Our restaurant is completely vegetarian.
Devotees say certain ingredients affect their state of mind. Foods like milk and cheese nourish the body and are considered good, while foods like mushrooms, onions, and garlic are not used because they stimulate the senses and detract from spirituality. The income generated from the gift store and restaurant plays an important role in sustaining the commune's monthly events.
The scheduling is like a maze. We have festivals, and these festivals need organization. Every time we have a festival, we have to cook for 500 plus. The fundraising to maintain the community, it's a whole unbelievable amount of work.
On this Sunday, the commune has come together for the Bhagavad Gita Yajna to honor one of Hinduism's most sacred scriptures.
So we have these fire sacrifices in which we're glorifying the Lord. By throwing the grains, it means that we're actually becoming purified of all our sinful reactions.
As a last offering, bananas are placed in the fire. Radha says it simply means they are feeding God, but knows it's this sort of ritual that often breeds a misconception about the Krishna consciousness movement.
We cannot really focus our attention on what other people think all the time because we understand what we are doing, we have faith in what we're doing is right. So if people are having misconception about what we're doing, what is their misconception all about? If we are happy people, what are they looking at? Well, what fault are they finding in us? And everyone wants to be happy. Everyone is searching for happiness.
Though these people have their critics, Savas says there's no shortage of interest to join the community.
There is a waiting list, yes there is. We do actually ask everyone to fill out a form, and that form does tell us a lot about the individual in itself, meaning that you just don't walk to the door and say, hey, I want to be at Hare Krishna, can I move in?
There's one person who answers this question here. It's Savas, the final authority on who joins the ISKCON community. He says he looks for genuine motivation.
We do have a meeting with the individual. We encourage them to come to the temple for several months. And then when we become satisfied that they're trying to make a sincere endeavor to become a devotee, then we have a 3-month trial period.
That time can best be described as a spiritual boot camp.
It was very difficult, very difficult. The first 3 months was like hell. I was like, I couldn't get up in the morning. Devotees would wake me up and I would think, if I can handle this 1 year, I would be a devotee for the rest of my life.
It pretty much tells us where the individual's at, if they're capable of rising early in the morning and chanting on beads and studying the scripture and doing menial service in the temple. We find that after 3 months, whatever their intention is pretty much exposed. It gives us a real good idea of a person being able to continue on in the ashram.
The ashram is where devotees live. In the first phase of communal life, the devotees have committed themselves as brahmacharis, single celibate students.
I've been celibate for 10 years, being Krishna conscious. By chanting the holy name, Krishna actually protects the senses. You become very, very strong spiritually.
But obviously this is a challenging lifestyle.
If we get 4 people that come and live in the ashram, I would say out of those 4, probably 1 will continue on.
Living in the ashram is an opportunity for people to practice this philosophy on a continual basis.
The Krishna temple here in this community is like an oasis within the city of LA. And if you stay right in that oasis, I don't have to move out of this block, and I don't feel I'm missing anything.
Savas says those who commit their lives to Krishna continue on to the next phase called Grihastha, where marriage is then an option.
I had a deep-rooted desire also, to get married. And if you suppress that desire, you will never be happy in Krishna consciousness. And I waited for a while, and Krishna sent me a nice devotee. We want to have children, and we want to stay here in the community and raise them.
They've elected voluntarily to continue with their service here in the temple. They said they would rather spend their life here and do service and have the temple maintain them, which I'm very happy to do.
The best part of living here in the community is that the devotees, and to see everybody serving Krishna, we all have a common goal, although we're from different parts of the world, and we're all just loving one person and trying to do the best we can for that person makes it the greatest happiness we can ever achieve. Best times of my life, actually.
In our next story, we meet a woman who is keeping an age-old tradition alive, canning, like fruits and vegetables. But it's more than a story about preserving food. It's about embracing an important part of our past.
They're down here, right down here, baby. I got some to-go containers for you ladies who don't have time. Most of us live and die in our community. We breathe, we walk, we move, so knowing what goes on in your community is very important. And it gives you a sense of belonging, a sense of being a part of something. The community is what gives birth and nurturement, I guess that's the right word, to people. You grow and your community becomes your Mother Earth. Food, to me, is a very intimate commodity. There's nothing more intimate than food because they say you are what you eat. Food actually becomes you. So when you share food with someone, I think you're sharing something very spiritual and very valuable.
And that's what 67-year-old Etha Camille Robinson does. She shares food. Robinson has devoted much of her retirement to educating people in her community on her food passion, canning.
Oh, I can a variety of things. I do plum, a lot of jams and preserves, plum, peaches, apricots, fig, nectarine.
Canning has been around for nearly 3 centuries, and it is through this age-old art that Robinson reaches out to her community to bring a special piece of history.
If you don't have a good grasp of history, then you don't understand how things came to be the way they are today when you don't know the past.
Because, you see, a lot of our history was not told. We didn't see that as important.
Yeah.
Because there was so much stuff that you were ashamed of.
And
you didn't even want to.
Rather than embracing it.
Like when I remember when we would go, when John and I first got married, and he was in the service, and we would go somewhere, and we didn't want to tell anybody we were from Mississippi.
Shame, yeah.
We would say, oh, we're from Chicago. Growing up in Mississippi was very different from my life now. Being a black and living in a community which was there from slavery time.
It was a time when African Americans were considered second-class citizens. Hutcherson, like many other women in the South in the 1920s, said she had to learn to be resourceful with food because it wasn't always so available.
We had to have 365 jars of something canned, and we had a whole cupboard just filled with canned foods, enough to last for a whole year.
Canning, says Hutcherson, represented the fond memories she had of Southern life, but there were other not-so-nostalgic moments that were about a more harsh reality for blacks in the South.
In high school, the young students decided that they would join in helping to desegregate the town. We'd all get together in the morning, get ourselves organized, decided how we were going to partner and do march on the downtown. And my cousin, Juanita, told her sons, "Don't you get in that line now. I don't want you. I don't know what those white folks are going to do to you." And he was standing there, and policeman came by and said, "Why aren't you in the line?" He said, "I'm not going to march." He said, "Why aren't you going to march?" He said, "I'm just not going to march." He said, "You're a nigger, ain't you? Get in that line." And they pushed him in the line and made him walk. And I thought, oh my gosh, his mother's at home, and if she ever gets the word that her son is marching in that line, she's going to be having a stroke, because she's going to be sure that the white folks are going to beat him up or going to do something bad to him.
The early 1900s were called by many African Americans the nadir, which means the low point. And that is because after slavery and the promise of emancipation, Jim Crow segregation was put in place to redeem the South. So many African Americans found themselves in debt into a slave-like sharecropping system.
Robinson was among those families that had to resort to sharecropping, a life that she says helped teach her to be resourceful.
I don't know if I understood the necessity of it. We probably just thought it was something that you did. Now I kind of look back and understand that it was part of our survival techniques. I always say a tree can live without limbs and leaves, but it can't live without roots. Roots are so important because that's your source of all your nutrients too. Many people nowadays are not canning, so it's a tradition that I want to keep alive. My grandmother can, my mother can. And usually people don't get a chance to eat homemade jams and jellies. So it's always a special treat for people to have plum jelly or fig jam or fig preserves. So I'm really concerned about teaching the younger women and men the art of canning, and also showing them how using the fruits that nature provides for us, rather than throwing food away, we can take it and put it to use, and it can be used later on in the year, like in the old days. Now you can use pickling spices, you can use mustard seeds, celery seeds, based on your taste, but just some form of spices. And then we'll stir it on the stove, and then we'll be ready to put it on the pickles. And so once the jars are sterilized, then you pour the liquid in here over the pickles. And just move it around in here, and the air comes out of the jar. Your sterilized jar top, after you've removed all the air bubbles out, then you place that on the jar. It's a way to pay homage to our ancestors, to affirm the worthiness of what they did. And it's also a means of utilizing food products that are already here. In other words, if we have plums, peaches that are already grown, why not use them? We can't eat them all at the same time, but we can at least preserve them for future use, as well as continuing an age-old tradition.
In our last story for this episode, we profile a young woman who created quite a stir at her home because of the profession she's pursuing. No, it's not illegal, nor is a job bereft of values. Instead, she's pursuing something very different, her faith.
Megan Singer is a 24-year-old from a typical home in a comfortable Los Angeles suburb. She excelled in school, graduated college, and recently got her master's in social work. But while most of her classmates are working on building a career and a family of their own, Singer is doing something different. She has made a choice so out of the ordinary, she has to hide it from her family. Hide it in the trunk of her car.
The packet from the sisters that I received when I was accepted is in here.
Singer has decided to devote her life to God and become a nun.
I have been accepted to a religious order, the Dominican Sisters of Mary, Mother of the Eucharist, out in Ann Arbor, Michigan.
Singer is one of only a couple hundred young women to choose this path in the U.S. every year. The number of religious sisters in this country is less than a third of what it was 40 years ago, and only 1% of those are under age 40.
In the present time, it is true there are fewer vocations. There are so many things that pull them toward worldly values. I mean, it's really counterculture to enter a religious community. It's not the thing your parents send you to college to achieve.
My family isn't supportive of a vocation. It's kind of taboo. It's not expected. And if it does occur, it's to be stamped out.
When Singer began considering religious life during her junior year of college, she kept mostly quiet about it, only telling her younger sister.
I kind of saw it coming a little bit because she was always involved with the church, and I just saw it in one of her blog entries, and I just confronted her about it. I was like, is this something you're seriously considering, or are you just kind of joking around? What's the deal?
But to Singer, it was no phase. It was something she had been thinking about since she was a teenager.
Since my family only saw church and religion as something as a Sunday thing, and if it wasn't convenient, you didn't go, I started kind of causing some rifts in the family because I wanted to go to church. Come hell or high water, let's go to Mass. And I was like, that can't be it, because I want more God, and I don't want to have to wait until I get married.
In college, she got involved with various Christian groups, homeless ministry, and social service projects, but it never seemed to be enough.
And God was like, you're on the right track, but you want to do something more. You know, I want you to consider looking at something else. Well, it didn't really hit me until I went on a family vacation in Italy in summer of 2006. And I landed in Rome after like a 12-hour flight. And God's like, that. I want you to do that. And I look everywhere and there's just nuns everywhere. I'm like, no. And God's like, well, okay, fine, I'll back off. But when you're ready, I want you to consider it.
And consider it she did. For a year, Singer thought and prayed about it. She signed up on a website designed like a dating service that matches applicants with the religious order that will best suit them. And gradually, she narrowed it down.
And I didn't go on my first retreat until November 2008. I made up a lie for my mom and told her it was a national convention for Catholic leaders. Bit of a lie, but you know, if you want to really do it, you gotta make some effort to get there.
In the winter of 2008, she joined the Dominican Sisters of Mary, Mother of the Eucharist for a weekend retreat and asked for her application to join.
It was just an absolute ease. It's like coming back home, except I had never been there before. Why was it that I felt like I knew those hallways? I could see myself. I could see myself in the white habit and the black veil walking down those hallways. It was God saying, this is a good place for you to be.
But returning home with the news was a mixed blessing.
Eventually told my dad, who had before not been aware of my vocation at all. And so I told him that I was in discernment and I think God's calling me to go to the convent. He's fairly supportive of it, not as supportive as I would like him to be, and the main reason of that is my mom. I just told my mom this past June. I remember the day, I remember the time, I was worried sick about it. I told her that there was a retreat for a week for other young women like myself who were thinking about religious life, and I'd like to go. She was very upset about it, said many hurtful things. I'm not going to repeat all of them.
My mom she doesn't really understand where my sister's coming from. She doesn't understand my sister's passion for it, for the church, and she just doesn't get it. From my mom's point of view, she kind of views my sister's extreme involvement as slightly a bit of an obsession. So she just doesn't understand where my sister's coming from because she doesn't know the whole truth. So.
Well, I have a P.O. box to receive mail from religious orders. I've come across family opening up my mail from religious orders and having some fights and arguments over it.
I think we see in the lives of the saints, St. Francis of Assisi having to deceive his parents, maybe you could say in the beginning. The parents' resistance, especially her mother, to her making this choice means that her mother is interfering with her freedom.
I feel like a hypocrite for keeping it under wraps. The New Testament is littered with examples. Be the light of the earth. You don't hide it under a bushel basket, and yet that's exactly what I was and still am doing. I was supposed to enter this past August, but due to my student loans, I couldn't enter, so I had to wait until I pay off my loans.
The idea of the student loan became a new problem for orders because communities feel that it takes away your freedom. If they pay the debt, then you don't have the choice to leave.
Singer owes almost $47,000 in loans. She's looking for a job to pay it off, and now she's asking for help.
As you may know, I've been in discernment for the past 3 years and accepted for entrance to a convent, the Dominican Sisters of Mary, Mother of the Eucharist, this past year. I would love to enter the convent soon, but can't with my student debt. Below is my vacation story. In here, I have about 50 letters, to be sent out, and they all look like this one here, where you get an envelope to fill out with how much you want to donate. You're in a relationship with God. It's like being in a relationship with your boyfriend or a fiance. And you love him and he loves you, and you're willing to do anything. And last minute you're told you can't do it this year. That's a tough thing to get used to. This is something I wanted to do, and something he's calling me to do. And I have obstacles in my way, and they're not insurmountable, but graduate student loans and a mother who's not happy with you they're big things, especially for a girl. You want the support of your mom. I don't have it. I might never have it. Meanwhile, you can't sit and wallow. A lot of these prayer groups and things, they help me keep my faith grounded. It's easy to see how my schedule falls apart in the home environment it's in. I get that there's pain in this world. Whether I get pain in not going and, living everyday life as though you want to be somewhere else. It's a chance for me to really say, I'm sticking it out. Come hell or high water, I am here, and I'm sticking with God, and He's by my side, and I don't know, He's got my back.
That's it for this edition of Impact. Be sure to check out all of our episodes at www.uscimpact.org. Now here's a look at some of our upcoming stories.
The character is this living, breathing extension of your brain. So if they don't do it right, what they get is a stinky, smelly, disheveled-looking guy in a suit. Monstrous-headed critters, if you will, in pajamas.
You tell people that you fish the LA River, the first response is like, are there 3 eyes on the fish? Do they glow? There's a lot of misinformation when it comes to the river. They think it's a sewer system. A lot of people think it's a sewer system, which, it's not.